The surge of U.S. troops into the Middle East marked an unparalleled and rapid deployment, echoing a magnitude not witnessed since World War II. The Gulf War became a resounding testament, signaling to Iraq and the rest of the world that the United States had conquered massive logistical challenges. In 1990, the stage was set for the United States to unveil its mastery of logistics, proving once again that in the art of warfare, logistics is the decisive factor. First, let's give ourselves some context for the war. Okay, so prior to the Gulf War, Iraq was in conflict with Iran. Okay, the Iran-Iraq War was fought over territorial boundaries and other regional tensions. Okay, it was an intense war fought in the trenches and with the use of chemical weapons like mustard gas. One of the pivotal battles in the Iran-Iraq War was the Battle of excuse me, the Battle of Khorramshahr, okay, which unfolded in 1980. Khorramshahr, an Iranian city strategically located near the border with Iraq, became a battleground of intense urban warfare. The Iraqi forces under Saddam Hussein's command launched a fierce assault to capture the city. Despite facing heavy resistance from Iranian defenders, including the Revolutionary Guard and local militias, the Iraqis ultimately succeeded in taking control of Khorramshahr after months of brutal street-to-street combat. The battle had a profound impact, setting a tone for the protracted conflict and highlighted the ferocity in which both sides were willing to engage. Another notable engagement was the Battle of Fao, which took place in 1986. Fao, a crucial port city along the Persian Gulf, was under Iraqi control, and the Iranians, determined to regain it, launched a large-scale offensive. Led by Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces, the Iranians engaged in a series of amphibious assaults, culminating in the recapture of Fao. The war ended after 8 years in 1998, and Iraq had to pay its debts to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. They owed Kuwait about $14 billion. Now, unfortunately for Iraq, and later Kuwait, Iraq was not able to pay these debts. Okay, you see, Iraq had an oil-dominant economy, okay? And Kuwait was fucking shit up on that front, okay? Because Kuwait and OPEC were producing more oil than they had quota for, okay? Which meant that oil prices were far lower than they should have been, and as a result, Iraq couldn't sell enough to keep the lights on, okay? And Iraq accused Kuwait of economic warfare. Saddam demanded $10 billion for damages, but Kuwait gave them a finger with a $500 million counteroffer. Okay. Coincidentally, Kuwait was also overheard insulting Iraq and joking about making Iraqi women do forced acts, if you catch my drift. Obviously, this did not sit well with Iraq. Okay. So they invaded, thus beginning what would later become the Gulf War. Now, on August 2nd, 1990, the Iraqi army crosses the border into Kuwait. Okay. Emir al-Sabah flees to Saudi Arabia, and the United Nations Security Council passes Resolution 660 condemning the invasion. Okay? Now, Kuwait was caught unaware of the war. Okay? How the fuck they missed this is beyond all of us. All right? Now, given the army on their border and back and forth with them directly. All right? So, when Iraq crossed the border with troops, tanks, helos, Kuwait was pretty rightly fucked. Now, Kuwait was able to resist, but they were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Kuwait evacuated some of their troops while others stood to fight and delay the incoming Iraqi army. Okay, Iraq took Dasman Palace quickly after a failed airborne assault, but a successful marine landing. Okay, and tanks subsequently rolled into Kuwait City shortly after that. By the end of the first day, there were only pockets of resistance fighters left in the country. Okay, those resistance groups would be supported by Green Berets and the CIA assets in the area until the U.S. put warheads on foreheads with Operation Desert Storm. The next day, on August 3rd, U.S. ships are deployed to the Gulf Coast by President George H.W. Bush, and then on August 4th, Iraq imposed a new government over Kuwait. Okay. The speed of this war has been pretty breakneck, okay? It took them like a day to take over the country of Kuwait, all right? And things have just started, all right? 2 days later, United Nations Security Council Resolution 661 is passed, imposing sanctions on Iraq. By August 7th, international sanctions have been placed on Iraq, and there are over 15,000 troops sitting on the border in Saudi Arabia from the United States. In addition to those troops, there are over 24 ships and hundreds of helicopters and jets. A shitstorm is brewing, and Iraq has received a warning. Okay. In the span of 3 days, the United States has moved a town's worth of troops, tanks, artillery, ships, aircraft, and missiles to the other side of the world in a showdown with one of the region's most powerful militaries. But things get immeasurably worse for Iraq because those 15,000 troops were just the beginning. The United States and coalition forces would have over 900,000 troops in the region by the end of this conflict. On August 8th, Operation Desert Shield commences and brings with it another 200,000 troops to the region on top of the 15,000 already deployed. Desert Shield was established to prepare the United States for leading a coalition in the region and to aid Saudi Arabia in the event that Iraq attacked. United Nations Security Council Resolution 662 is passed, condemning the invasion of Kuwait. By August 16th, a naval blockade is established around the occupied territory to deny Iraq access to the sea. Okay? 2 additional UNSC resolutions would pass, condemning Iraq and imposing sanctions before the end of August. Kuwait is formally annexed by Iraq on August 28th. A month later, on September 9th, the United States and the Soviet Union agree that Iraq must withdraw from Kuwait under the resolutions that are passed in the United Nations, resolutions 660, 661, 662, 664, and 665. Okay? October 18th, at present, over 200,000 American troops, 15,000 British troops, and 11,000 French troops are in the Gulf region. However, the United States decided we needed a couple more troops in the area, so we sent another 100,000 troops to the Gulf region on November 8th, 1990. Iraq is feeling some pressure, okay, and decides to move some more troops into Kuwait. Approximately 200,000 more troops would be moved into Kuwait. Now, on November 29th, Iraq is given one final warning in the form of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 678. Get out of Kuwait before January 15th, or face an ass whooping the likes of which have not been seen in decades. Okay? On January 12th, 1991, U.S. Congress, scrapping through by the skin of its teeth in both the House and the Senate, gave the thumbs up for military action against Iraq. The scene in Congress was like that of a pressure cooker, with lawmakers throwing elbows in debates, weighing the heavy consequences and global mess this decision could stir up. It was a wild turn of events, a real roller coaster in U.S. history, putting us on the path for some serious showdown in the Gulf. That green light revealed the messy dance between diplomacy and throwing punches, happening right smack in the middle of a time when tensions were running hotter than a stolen car, okay? Now, on January 15th, 580,000 coalition troops stood opposed to 540,000 Iraqi troops. Okay, if you want to visualize how many people 500,000 people is, let's take a well-known U.S. city. Okay, we'll take the population of Las Vegas. It's approximately 600,000 people. Okay, imagine if we moved the entire population of Las Vegas to Saudi Arabia in a couple months. Okay, we may not drop the most bombs in this conflict, but the United States sure as fuck knows how to move a massive amount of resources in a very short amount of time. Okay, all for the purposes of whooping ass. All right. Now, the United States moved more resources in the first 6 weeks of this conflict than the entirety of the Berlin airlift, okay, which lasted over a year. All right. One United States airlift operation to get resources in the region would log over 9,000 sorties, deliver 300,000 tons of supplies, 300,000 troops, and 400 tanks. Okay. This meant that over 120 planes touched down per day, one every 11 minutes for 24 hours a day. Okay, the airlifts only accounted for 1/10 of the total resources sent to theater. All right, now it was unfortunate for Iraq that. It's unfortunate that Iraq had zero fucking idea what they were about to be up against. Okay, the absolute beating these guys are about to receive is unbelievably immense. Okay. However, that's for part 2. All right. Thanks for watching this shorter kind of prelude to the Gulf War. I love you guys. If you like the video, like the video for me. I love you.